pitfalls of the Nintendo Entertainment System. When you master Rob, the video robot, and meet the challenge of Gyrobite. When you shoot the light-sensing zapper. When you play the system with so many arcade hits, you're playing with power.
Hello and welcome to another nugget of retro gaming gold with ReplayRetro. I'm Matt, and on today's show we're taking a look at a pretty unusual peripheral with an interesting story as we find out about Nintendo's robotic operating buddy, or R.O.B for short. In 1983, Nintendo had launched the highly successful Famicom in Japan, and we're exploring the possibility of releasing it to Western markets, starting with America. They initially tried to set up a deal with Atari, but troubles with the licensing of other Nintendo properties stalled this deal, leaving the Japanese toy company to find their own way into the market. However, a glut of poor quality games and the oversaturation of the hardware market had led to the North American video game crash, also known as Atari shock in Japan. As a result of this, retailers had little to no interest in a new video game system, believing the industry to be a fad which was now ending. Regardless of these obstacles, Nintendo were convinced their system would thrive in the West, and set about a plan to convince retailers to get on board by marketing the system as a toy instead of a video game. The first step was to redesign it, making it fit better into a home entertainment setup and look less like traditional top-loading games consoles, including the Japanese Famicom. Next up, the system would be bundled with a light gun and duck hunt cartridge, which appeared more toy-like. But the final piece of the puzzle came when Nintendo legend Gunpei Yokoi created a foot-tall automaton by the name of R.O.B and the Gyromite game to complete the Nintendo Entertainment System Deluxe bundle. R.O.B works in a similar fashion to the light gun, by detecting light from the television via sensors in his eyes, and as such is only compatible with cathode ray tube television sets. R.O.B requires no physical connection to the console, and instead receives information in the form of flashes on the screen. These flashes give him instructions such as turn left, go up, and release grip, which enable him to carry out tasks required for progression in the game. The pack-in game, Gyromite, or Robot Gyro, came with accessories allowing R.O.B to press buttons on a controller using spinning gyros. By pressing these buttons, R.O.B is able to raise or lower various gates in the game, which allow the player to continue through the level. In order to get R.O.B to do this, the player must give instructions to him via another controller to get him to spin the gyros and move them to the required positions. Failure to input the correct sequence of instructions sees R.O.B fail in his task, and the player will reach a closed gate, or worse, be crushed by it closing on them. A second game called Stack Up, or Block in Japan, was also released separately, again coming with its own accessories. In this title, R.O.B must rearrange a series of blocks on different podiums in order to complete different objectives dependent on the game mode selected. This clever concept would act as a Trojan horse to sneak the NES into retailers, who saw it as a mechanical toy and TV game hybrid. Early focus groups weren't entirely favourable, however. Nor was the initial Japanese release in a more Famicom-themed colour scheme in July 1985 under the slightly less fun name Family Computer Robot. Nevertheless, Nintendo knew that their gamble wasn't about making R.O.B successful, it was about getting the console itself into shops in America and making that successful. And with Christmas fast approaching, they sought help from the Worlds of Wonder sales force, who helped persuade retailers to take a chance on the deluxe bundle, along with their orders of 1985's must-have Christmas toys like laser tag and Teddy Ruxpin. But would the gamble succeed? Well, we'll see what happened next, after we take a look at R.O.B himself. And here he is, your friendly neighbourhood robotic operating buddy, or R.O.B for short. You can see here that this is the Western market release, as the colours are very much designed to coordinate with the Nintendo Entertainment System here, lots of nice greys and blacks. And from a design point of view, he is really cool. He really does look like one of those awesome 90s robot toys that we all loved back at that point. It was very much a craze for robots and robot toys, and I think everyone thought that by now in 2016 robots would probably be doing far more than they actually are for us. From a design point of view, I've always thought Rob looks quite a bit like Johnny Five from the Short Circuit films, although of course they came later, so actually perhaps Rob himself inspired the design of Johnny Five, and it's mostly because of his square head, I think. His kind of flat rectangle head, that I think that's what inspired that for me. You can see that he has a really nice solid base that he can't fall over very easily, which of course is important because he is going to be carrying things. On that base you can see numbered slot positions, so you have 4 and 5 there, and it goes round 3, 2, 1. The rotating mechanism is also in the base here, and there is a track as you go up what I suppose would be Rob's back. There's a track here that the cogs in his main body piece run on to allow him to move up and down. You then have his arms, which can open and close to carry things. And at the minute he has blank hands, as each game came with separate hands to enable him to complete the tasks within that game. And then you end up with his head, which can tilt down and tilt up so that you can aim it at the screen to make sure that Rob is getting a good view of the screen. Speaking of his view of the screen, of course here we have the sensors in his eyes which allow him to see the flashes on the screen so that he knows what it is you want him to do. And if he has got a good connection with the screen, this little red LED on his head here will be lit to let you know that he has received instructions and is waiting for his next instruction. You then have this very retro flex down the back and Rob's power button just there, or power switch I should say. On the base we have the usual rubber feet to help him steady, all the labels and copyright information you'd expect, as well as a battery compartment for Rob's 4 AA batteries. We'll just pop that shut again. Of course, in order to play Gyromite, Rob is going to need some accessories. First off, he'll need the hands that are specifically designed for Gyromite. These are actually a 3D printed replacement pair, as his originals were broken. And I just think it's a brilliant piece of 3D engineering that we're now able to recreate parts as one-offs like that, so that all those Robs out there that don't have hands can have hands. And they were very cheap from eBay, so I'm absolutely really happy with those. They're great quality, they fit in with the colour scheme, and they work for the game. They lock together very well. So we'll clip those on first. There we go, Rob. And there we go. Next up, Rob's going to need to be able to work a controller, so he'll need his controller adapter, which has a couple of buttons here that he can drop gyros on. They then follow the arm down, and that causes a little button to be pressed there. There you go, or there, to allow Rob to press buttons on a standard control pad. So we'll clip that into the 1 and 2 positions, so that Rob will be able to control the game. And then we'll get the gyro holder, which is simply a piece of plastic designed to hold Rob's gyros. Clip that into the 3 and 4 positions. And then we will need the motorized spinner, which allows Rob to spin the gyros so that they will balance on the buttons in case he needs to press more than one button at once. And that has a little switch on the front there and has its own D-cell battery. And I can just show you that working by grabbing a gyro. All that happens is as soon as you drop a gyro in, the spinner starts spinning it like that. It'll get up a fair speed, and then Rob can pick that up, pop it down, and it'll spin just like a very high speed spinning top. We'll stop that attacking Rob now, as it has flown off the table. And we'll pop it into one of Rob's holder slots. Get the other gyro, pop that in there, and attach the spinner over here. So that's Rob all set up, but he is going to need a controller. and it's the Player 2 controller that Rob uses. So we'll slot that in there so that now when Rob presses these buttons, it activates a corresponding button on the control pad. We will of course also need a controller, so we take the Player 1 controller. Sorry Rob, you're relegated to being Player 2. We'll then take the Gyromite game cartridge, pop that into the console, and then you're ready to play Gyromite on the Nintendo Entertainment System using Rob. Okay, so you can see here from the main screen of Gyromite, I can switch the phase, which is basically the level. I have test and direct, which enable me to test how well Rob is receiving the signal and make sure all his movements are working. And then if we go to here, we have 1-player and 2-player game A, and of course game B. So we'll have a look at the 1-player game A first. In this version of the game, I control the Professor, who is trying to collect the bits of dynamite from around the level while avoiding the little monster creature things. However, as you can see, the gates need opening for me to get through. So I press start and I can tell Rob to move down. Press start again and tell him to close his hands. Press start again and tell him to lift the gyro. Press start again and tell him to move across to the blue button. And press start again and tell him to press it down. And the gate opens. I can pick up this bit of food ready for distracting that little creature if I need to. I can now tell Rob to lift the gate up again. There we go. I'm going to keep this little bit of food so I can distract that creature and get past him. Get that dynamite. Now I need to tell Rob to press the other gate down. And now I can go through there. And I'm going to get Rob to lift that again so that that creature is locked in. There we go. Gives me a little bit of safety. I can now go down the rope. Oh. There we go. That's that one. Is there any more over here? I need to time this fall, I think. Let's sneak along behind this little guy. Once I get this last piece of dynamite, the level should end. And there we go, so we made it through and we'll move on to phase 2. Once again, another level that we have to navigate through. So we need Rob. Didn't need to send him up then actually. You could press that blue button down for me, Rob, that would be great. That's brilliant, thank you Rob. And if you could just lift it up again for me. Thank you. And I now need him to press the red one down. And I can make my way through. Looks like a big fall, but I'm assuming I can do it. There you go, I'm mostly indestructible. Hey Rob, if you can lift that for me please. And I can go through. And then the blue gate please Rob. And so I'm making my way through the levels. And is that the last one? Yeah, there we go. And that's phase 2. So you can see how Rob is basically in control of the gates. There are times, of course, when Rob will need to hold a button down, in which case he has to use the motorised spinner, as if you just release the gyro on the button, it'll just fall off. So let's go back to the main menu and let's have a look at game mode B, and we'll keep it at level 3 for game mode B, because I think there is a part here where it might be level 4 actually, where we need Rob. So you can see on B here the professor is sleepwalking and I'm now directly in control of Rob. So I need to press down on the blue so that the professor can sleepwalk through there. Don't lift it too early or it'll get squashed. And now lift it. Again, don't press it again or it'll crush it. I need to get Rob ready to open the red gate. And the professor can pass safely through. As soon as he's passed, I'll get the next red gate ready. Now I think on the next level, I need to use the gyro spinner. So I will prepare a spinning gyro. Or it might be the level after then. Which is annoying. Come on, Rob. There you go, Professor. I think I prefer this game mode. Just knock that there because it's just touched out. I think the springs in Rob's accessories are going a little bit. And then again, the Professor can pass safely through. So it must be the next level where I'm going to need to use the spinner. Right, so you can see for this level, I'm going to have to hold down the blue button and then press the red. So to do that, I first need to get this spinner moving. So I'll drop it on the motorised spinner and let it build up some power. Rob can then pick up the spinning gyro. And carry it over to the blue button. There you go. So now the spinning gyro will hold the blue button down, holding the blue gate down. Oops. Press the wrong button there. Now pick up the other gyro. And you can see that the other gyro is still spinning, holding that blue button down. And I can move the second gyro into position. And press the red button. And then release the red button to get the Professor to safety. And I've only just realised, actually, I could have just used the blue one. So that was a long way of doing that level. But at least that does show you how the spinning mechanic works, as it allows you to hold down a button, which does become useful in later levels.
By the end of its first year, the NES had sold more than 1 million units. Rob had done his job, and retailers were now clamouring to get hold of more consoles. The video game crash was over, all thanks to Nintendo and their robotic operating buddy. With America secured, Nintendo now moved on to the European market, where the crash had had far less impact thanks to the microcomputer revolution. As a result, no Trojan horse was needed here,
And while the deluxe bundle did see European shelves in September of 1986, it was the smaller sets which sold in higher numbers, and the peripheral never received another game, leaving him the unsung hero of one of the world's favourite 8-bit consoles. Since then, Rob has made guest appearances in a number of Nintendo games, including Mario Kart on the DS, WarioWare Smooth Moves on the Wii, and most recently in Super Smash Bros. On the Wii U. He's even been immortalised for a new generation to love as an amiibo, whatever one of those is. In 2014, independent games developer RetroZone released a NES cartridge called 8-Bit Christmas, featuring flashing lights and Christmas music. This cart is designed to be used with Rob and makes him dance to the music. GameSpy even rated Rob as being the 5th smartest move in video game history, giving him rightfully deserved credit for the success of the NES, even if he didn't manage to enjoy that success himself. These days, Rob is a highly sought-after item among collectors, and the complete Western release of Stack Up is regarded as one of the rarest first-party games. He may not have been the most popular accessory for the NES, but Rob was undoubtedly one of the most important. That's all we've got time for today, but don't forget you can get involved via our Facebook page, follow us on Twitter, and even support the show on Patreon. I'll be back soon with a look at Rob's second game, Stack Up. I'll see you then. Hey guys, the video you just watched was voted for by fans of the show, so if you'd like to take part in the next vote and help decide what videos I make next, then head over to our Patreon subscription page and find out how you can be involved and take part in the show. Thanks for watching, guys!